Hello everyone, bringing you a video today which I thought would be an appropriate topic given the date, and this is looking at 3 different recreations of British forces in the Falklands. Slightly different format in what I'm going to do is run through the kit worn, and a lot of this has already been covered in more detail in previous videos, so watch up in the top left for cards which will link you through to those videos dealing with the elements I talk about in this video in more detail, and hopefully that'll be of interest to you. But I thought it would be interesting. I can't go to events and so forth at the moment for reenacting. Take a little bit of time, put the kit on, and then link through to those videos where I've covered each individual item in more detail, should you wish to go and have a look at those and find out a little bit more about the items in question. So without further ado, we'll get into the video and have a look at these 3 different individuals. The first set of uniform and equipment we'll look at here is actually something I've covered previously in different formats of videos, such as Mannequin of the Month. But I thought it would be interesting to have a look at this set of equipment in uniform together, all together, in a way that can't be displayed on the mannequin. And what we have here is a representation of a Royal Navy rating serving on the upper decks of Royal Navy ships in the South Atlantic in 1982 as basically improvised anti-aircraft gunners using small arms. Now, the need for this was due to many of the Royal Navy warships having lost or having been designed without sufficient close-in anti-aircraft firepower in terms of anti-aircraft guns such as the Bofors 40mm and the Oerlikon 20mm, for example, which were still present on some older ships. As such, sailors and Royal Marines pressed into service GPMGs, L4 light machine guns, and even L1A1 self-loading rifles to provide a modicum of anti-aircraft fire. And as you can see here, the weapon carried is the L1A1 self-loading rifle in this instance. Talking more about the uniform and the equipment, we'll start at the top as we normally do, and the head protection is a standard issue Royal Navy steel helmet of the time, which is the Royal Armoured Corps pattern of steel helmet. And underneath this, anti-flash gear is worn with the anti-flash hood, which not only serves its primary role of fire protection, but also provides something of an improvised balaclava in the poor weather conditions to be found in the South Atlantic at this time of year. The foul weather clothing consists of the smock from the Mark III foul weather suit, which included smock and trousers. Only the smock is worn here. A relatively simple garment for the most part, with quite a complex hood with a face protector, which is rarely seen worn, but closing down the front with a zip and Velcro with 2 pockets on the front. Elasticated cuffs and so forth. Actually quite a practical garment by the standards of the time. In addition to this, we have more of the anti-flash gear here with the gloves worn. Again, not only serving protection against fire, but also serving as weather protection as well, a modicum of weather protection. Moving down further, we have the Mark III life jacket in its blue nylon pouch slung on the waist belt around the waist. And slung from this is the black vinyl pouch containing the survival suit, and this forms the sailor's sea survival equipment. Around on the hip, the haversack for the S6 respirator is carried, and in addition to this, the strap is being used to carry a blue plastic mug, and this is provided for action messing, which consisted of snacks, chocolate bars, that sort of thing, and hot drinks, soup, hot chocolate and that sort of thing to keep the men going in the poor weather conditions which prevailed. Moving down further, the trousers are from the standard number 8 action working dress uniform, these being the polyester cotton variety, not fire retardant, something which would prove to be a major problem during the Falklands and something which would be rectified afterwards with fire retardant clothing. The trousers are tucked into long woolen socks, which is very common to see at the time period in period photographs, and the footwear consists of what are known as steaming bats, essentially RN work boots, with a steel toe cap and a rubber sole. These are very practical shoes for wear aboard ship, good protective footwear. So that is a rundown of the kit and equipment worn by ratings serving as extemporised anti-aircraft gunners on the upper decks of Royal Navy warships during the Falklands War. The next set of uniform and equipment we're going to look at is that of an infantryman, specifically a guardsman of the Scots Guards, after landing on East Falkland on the march. And we can see here, starting at the top as usual, the helmet worn, the head protection, is the Mark IV steel helmet. This has been covered in a piece of DPM cloth, followed by a net and plenty of scrim on top of that. It's also interesting to note that a privately purchased chin cup has been added to the chin strap to make this a lot more comfortable to wear, which was a fairly common addition at the time. The face has also been camouflaged using camouflage cream, and at the neck a scrim scarf is worn. The combat uniform consists of the 1968 pattern smock and trousers, standard issue at the time. Black leather combat gloves are worn, and these have an elastic section around the wrist and also a padded area over the knuckles. The web equipment is also standard issue, though worn in a somewhat stripped down configuration, this being the 1958 pattern web equipment. On the left hand side, the left ammunition pouch is carried, and this not only carries ammunition but also supports the bayonet for the self-loading rifle, and behind this we have the water bottle pouch. Slung over this is a bandolier carrying more ammunition, 50 rounds of 7.62. On the right hip we can see the right hand ammunition pouch, and behind this the haversack for the S6 respirator, though accounts of the time maintained that the S6 was dispensed with and this pouch was essentially used as a large pouch to carry extra bits and pieces on the belt. The weapon carried is the standard issue self-loading rifle, and in this instance the butt and the handguards have been camouflaged using Hessian and scrim. Looking at the back of the setup here, we can see why the web equipment is worn in a stripped down configuration. It's to make the carrying of the large civilian Bergen rucksack possible. The rear pouches and the pipe carrier have been omitted from the back here, and carried in their place is a Carrymore Jaguar 4 rucksack or Bergen, and carried on this we have the lightweight shovel with the head covered in Hessian to stop it shining, and beneath this is the roll mat. Cold weather clothing, rations and the sleeping bag, along with other items such as the holdall, are carried in the main body and the side pockets of the rucksack. Footwear consists of the DMS boots, and whilst it's been noted that even some of the better boots worn by other troops in the Falklands did suffer, the DMS boot came up very much wanting due to it being made to a price and being very much lacking in quality, and became somewhat infamous because of the experience of troops during the Falklands War. These are worn with ankle puttees, which were essentially standard at the time. So that's a basic external look at the kit and uniform of a Scots Guardsman, taken directly from period photographs to show a man on the march after landing. The final set of uniform and equipment we're going to look at here is another example of naval personnel, in this case an armourer of the Fleet Air Arm serving on the flight deck of HMS Hermes. Armourers not only being responsible for the weapon load of an aircraft but also elements such as the ejection seat. Starting at the top again, we have here the flight deck helmet, and this is a Mark III example, and as you can see here in a bright blue and orange high visibility colour scheme. These are worn with a set of ear defenders to protect the ears on the very noisy environment which is a carrier flight deck. One thing that's important to note here, the ear defenders shown are a stand-in, they are not the original type issued with this helmet. Simple goggles have been provided for eye protection. These are civilian items as you might find for use in a workshop or similar, and seem to have been purchased due to a lack of sufficient supplies of specifically issued military goggles. Underneath the flight deck helmet, the anti-flash hood is worn, not only providing protection from flash and fire, but once again providing some protection from the elements in the form of a balaclava. In this instance, the gauze intended to protect the nose and mouth is been pulled down out of the way. Moving down, we can see the anti-flash gloves are being worn as well as the anti-flash hood to provide, again, both fire and weather protection. A surcoat in a distinctive colour is worn, and these denoted the role of a man on the flight deck for easy identification. In this case, red with a black stripe represents an armourer, and this is worn over a Ventile windproof smock, which is part of the flight deck protective clothing which had been introduced in the 1960s. Period photographs show these worn alongside the Mark III foul weather clothing which we've already seen. The garment is made of cotton, includes a hood and 2 hip pockets, elasticated cuffs which are hidden beneath the anti-flash gloves, and there are various elements to attach and secure cables for communication equipment which are hidden underneath the surcoat. Again at the waist, this time to the rear, we have the life jacket in its pouch, the Mark III life jacket on its waist belt, and beneath this again the survival suit is slung, although as I say these have been moved around the back in this instance to keep them out of the way, which is fairly common to see in period photographs as well. Alongside these, the S6 respirator haversack is also carried, very similar to what we looked at before with the men serving as anti-aircraft gunners. Moving down, again the standard action working dress trousers are worn here, although this time they aren't tucked into long socks, and the standard steaming bats, the Royal Navy work boots, again are worn with these in terms of footwear. So that's a look at the uniform and equipment worn by a Royal Navy Fleet Air Arm armourer serving on the flight deck of HMS Hermes. This is fairly typical for flight deck personnel. There would be changes in the colour of the surcoat worn depending upon your role, of course, to allow identification. And the type of goggles issued, the type of helmet issued did vary quite considerably as well. And there were different boots and so forth issued as well. But this is a fairly typical example of some of the kit and equipment which was worn and carried at the time. So there we are, a slightly different video format there. In that I've not gone through done a one-man's kit video, looked at all the contents of the web equipment and so forth. We've looked at the general equipment and uniform that was worn at the time. And as I say, there are links through to the videos where I've covered some of this in more detail already, and there will be links added to this as I go through and look at other elements in more detail as well going forward. I do hope you found that interesting, as I always say, and I thought it would be an appropriate video to upload today. If you do like my content and you do like my videos and you'd like to see more from the channel, please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. And if you're newly subscribing or you've already subscribed, do make sure you hit the little bell, the little notification button down below. That, of course, will mean you're alerted when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you'd like to support the channel, you can. There's both a Patreon and PayPal link down below, and a massive thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It's really greatly appreciated. Thank you very much indeed, as ever. If you'd like to see more in terms of photographs and so forth, there will be photographs taken from the video posted up as well. You can catch those on social media. There's Facebook, Instagram and Twitter all linked down below, photographs and things posted over there. And if you want to make contact with me, to have a chat or whatever, but you don't really use social media, check out, there's an email address down below, and I check that fairly regularly, and I will try and get back to you using that if you want to make contact that way. But that's everything for this video, so until next time, bye for now.